preparation of a combine harvester KZS-1012 in a unit with an equipment set for grain maize harvesting KOK-6-3. Grain harvesting combine KZS-1012 manufactured by ЗЛiN Holding can be used for grain maize harvesting. Therefore, the combine KZS-1012 shall be fitted with an equipment set KOK-6-3 for grain maize harvesting. ЗЛiN Holding supplies this set to customers on a separate order and for a fee. The set includes special 6-row header as well as items designed for re-equipment of combined thresher and transport trolley. Re-equipment of inclined chamber, unitizing and final assembly of the header. When preparing the combined thresher for grain maize harvesting, the inclined chamber should be re-equipped. Mounting items designed for this purpose are located in packing place number 3, and they are a part of the set KOK-6-3. To re-equip the inclined chamber, it is necessary to dismantle guardings of adapter drive sprocket jar from the left side of the chamber. One row chain of adapter drive, 1 row sprockets of sprocket jar, chain damper. Then it is necessary to adjust the clearance between the fish bags of the conveyor and the bottom plate of the chamber as follows. Raise the lower shaft of the chamber up as far as it will go. Loosen the nuts on both sides of the chamber to ensure free rotation of the retainers. Unscrew the bolts from each side of the inclined chamber. Turn up the retainers on each side of the inclined chamber until the holes are aligned in the frame of the inclined chamber and in the retainers. Fix the stops with previously unscrewed bolts. Tighten the nuts with a torque from 470 to 520 Newton per meter. As a result of reinstalling the retainers, the clearance between the fish bags and the bottom plate of the chamber will increase to 40 mm, which will reduce the damage of grain in the supplied maize cobs by fish bags. Next, it is necessary to install a double-row chain jar of the adapter drive on the left side of the inclined chamber. The items for this jar is located in packing place number 3. Then install chain guardings. When installing a double-row chain jar components, follow the instructions in the set KOK-6-3 operations manual that is supplied together with this set. Before unitizing of the header located on the platform with the inclined chamber, the left and right packing legs of the header should be extended as far as possible. At the same time, the retaining pin of each leg should be installed in utmost upper hole in the leg supporting pole. Unitizing of the header with the thresher should be made on a flat horizontal platform. While unitizing, it is needed to drive up to the header, smoothly lift the inclined chamber so that the upper beam group of the adapter frame of the inclined chamber smoothly entered the header safety catches. When the chamber is lifted further, the supporting surfaces of the frame will fit to the counterparts of the header frame. Lifting is made until the plunges of the inclined chamber lift hydraulic cylinders are fully extended. After that, the safety retainer should be installed on the left hydraulic cylinder and the harvesting component should be lowered until closing the retainer ends and hydraulic cylinder body frame. To fix the header on the inclined chamber, put the right and left lower grip hooks of the header on the eccentric axles of the adapter frame and tighten the nuts located on the grip hooks. Then, upper grip hooks should be installed. Before this, the eyes in the upper part of the inclined chamber must be installed in the working position. The upper grip hooks are thrown on the axles located in the eyes, and then the nuts and lock nuts are tightened on the grip hooks. When making final assembly of the header, middle and side dividers should be installed. After installing the dividers, the plungers of the inclined chamber lift hydraulic cylinders should be fully extended again. Safety retainer should be installed in the initial position, and the header should be moved down on the ground using hydraulic cylinders. Then the harvesting component will be separated from the thresher from the obtained position of the assembly. It is necessary to separate the inclined chamber from the thresher to provide with access to the threshing cylinder and concave. Disassembly of the harvesting component, re-equipment of the inclined chamber, and assembly of cardan shafts of the header drive. When preparing for disassembly, it is needed to put one additional barrier for both sides of the chamber frame. After that, remove the 3 hydraulic hoses and the electric harness from the chucker socket plates located on the right side of the inclined chamber. Disconnect the hydraulic hoses from the hydraulic motor, hydraulic accumulator and the right hydraulic cylinder for controlling adapter frame turns. Then you need to disconnect the flap from the thresher. This flap is located near the safety coupling mounted on the upper shaft of the inclined chamber. At the same time, unscrew 6 threaded connections. Remove the belt from the driven pulley of the bell jar of upper shaft drive of the inclined chamber. Then disassemble the pipe with rollers from the inclined chamber. For that, you need to unscrew the bolts on the 2 clamping bars holding the pipe to the adapter flap of the thresher. Preparation for disassembly of the harvesting component is completed with disassembling the hydraulic cylinders from the inclined chamber and dismantling the right and left drive clamps, securing the chamber to the thresher. While dismantling, you need to unscrew 2 bolts, fastening each drive clamp to the holding down clip. After the preparation for disassembly is finished, move the thresher from the inclined chamber to a distance from 1.5 to 2 meters without rotating the steering wheel. After disassembling, it is necessary to dismantle the safety coupling configured at the moment of action from 600 to 660 Newton per meter from the upper shaft of the chamber. Then disconnect the pulley from the disassembled coupling and install the pulley on the safety coupling from the installation elements set. This coupling should be configured at the moment of action from 1300 to 1350 Newton per meter. Such a replacement is necessary to provide a drive with an energy-intensive grain maize harvesting header. Before installing the pulley, nuts, washers, cover and body frame should be dismantled from the coupling. Then install the dismantled pulley on the coupling, then the body frame, ensuring alignment of the body frame grooves with the protrusions of the disc. Then the cover should be installed. Tighten the nuts with a torque from 80 to 100 Newton per meter. Safety nuts must be tightened towards main nuts by 1/8–1/6 of turn. The assembled coupling should be installed on the upper shaft of the inclined chamber. The final tightening of the bolt in the terminal connection of the coupling wheel hub and the shaft should be done after the inclined chamber is assembled to the thresher when adjusting the bell jar of the drive of chamber upper shaft. The following components are located in packing place number 2 of the set KOK-6-3. 2 identical cardan shafts for the header drive, spare parts for the header. Each cardan shaft is installed in such a way that a yoke with an integrated safety coupling will be placed on the transmission jar shaft of the header. The yoke is fastened with a bolt on the header shaft. The yoke is fastened with spring-applied retaining pin on the drive shaft of the adapter. After installing the cardan shafts, fix the spring hooks of the safety chains of the shaft covers in the holes on the harness mounted on the header frame. Re-equipment and adjustment of the thresher, disassembly of harvesting component. In order to reduce the shattering of maize grain in the finished threshing unit of the thresher, dismantle the cap with the plate attached to it, unscrewing the 2 bolted joints located in the upper part of the cap. Install a removable cap taken from the packing place number 3 instead of the dismantled cap. After the inclined chamber is dismantled from the thresher, there is an access to the combined threshing unit cylinder. Install a special concave instead of the existing concave to reduce the shattering of maize grain from the combined action of the cylinder rasps and concave cleats for grain crops. This special concave is in packing place number 7. The replaceable concave is fastened to the thresher with the same fasteners. The behind beater of the combined threshing unit throws threshing products onto the first 2 streams of straw rack workers at a considerable speed. When harvesting maize, it often leads to damage and complete failure of the workers. KOK-6-3 set includes flaps to protect the first 2 streams of workers from damage. You can find these flaps in packing place number 3. 2 pairs of flaps are installed in each worker. The flap of the lap of the first stream has a grip hook. The flap is fastened to the beam channel flange with the grip hook. The beam channel is located in the front part of the worker. The flap installed on the second stream also has a grip hook, using which the flap is fastened to the beam channel flange of the second stream. Then the flaps are connected with each other using a lock plate and 2 bolts which, in delivery state, are fixed to the flap of the lap of the second stream. After tightening, the bolts should be locked with a lock plate. When installing flaps on the workers inside the thresher, use solid flooring to prevent personal injury. It is allowed to dismantle the 2 utmost workers on one of the sides of the straw rack in order to improve access to the installation sites. The inter-rasp spaces of the cylinder must be blocked with special flaps to prevent from returns and technological imbalance due to cobs entering the internal hole of the threshing cylinder, as well as to reduce shattering of grain. 10 of these flaps, paired with each other, are placed in packing place number 3. The shields of each pair are selected by weight with a difference of not more than 20 grams, so they should be installed on the cylinder strictly opposite each other, that is, diametrically opposite, so as not to unbalance the cylinder. Before installing on the cylinder, disassemble the retention cleat from the flap by unscrewing 5 bolts. When installed on the cylinder, the protrusions on the flap are inserted into the openings of the rasp supports. Then the band is installed on the cylinder. This band protrusion is also inserted to the openings of the rasp supports. After that, the strip is fastened to the flap using the 5 dismantled bolts. After installing replaceable concave and flaps on the cylinder, it is possible to attach the harvesting component to the thresher. To do this, it is necessary, without turning the steering wheel, to bring the thresher to the inclined chamber, so that the body frames of bearing supports of the chamber upper shaft is placed in the thresher bend loops. Further assembly actions should be carried out in the reverse order of the previous one. To prevent damage to the checkboard of the straw rack used when harvesting grain crops, it must be replaced with a hardened checkboard, which you can find in packing place number 3. When installing the replaceable checkboard, use fasteners with which the replaced checkboard is fixed. Then remove the replaceable sprocket with the number of cogs equal to 21 from packing place number 3. This driving sprocket must be installed in the chain jar of the grain transporting working unit's drive. The chain jar is located on the right side of the thresher. The above-mentioned sprocket is installed instead of the driving sprocket with the number of cogs equal to 17. After installing the replaceable sprocket, if necessary, add 1 or 2 adapter links from the spare parts and accessories set supplied with the set KOK-6-3 to the drive chain. The indicated sprocket replacement should be carried out in order to increase the productivity of the combine's grain path, and it is especially recommended when grain maize harvesting with a yield of 80 centners per hectare and more. When grain maize harvesting, the straw rack should be adjusted to cob threshing products in a swath to avoid damage to the straw shredder elements. Re-equipment and adjustment of threshing unit, adjustment of wind sieve-type filtration unit. When adjusting threshing unit of the combine KZS-10K for grain maize harvesting, make clearances between concave cleats and threshing cylinder rasps in the input from 35 to 45 mm, in the output from 18 to 25 mm. The size of clearance is selected based on specific harvesting conditions and is adjusted from the operator's workplace. If you need to adjust the size of clearance, you should adjust the length of the concave rods on both sides of the combine. When harvesting maize for grain with a humidity content of more than 25%, the combine KZS-1218 is allowed to operate with a threshing cylinder rotating frequency of 441 rotations per minute or more, which is provided by a V-belt variable speed jar of the cylinder drive. The operation of the cylinder with flaps installed on it over 610 rotations per minute is strictly prohibited. To ensure high-quality harvesting of maize for grain with a humidity content of less than 25%, it is necessary to switch on a reduction jar box in the drive of the threshing cylinder of the combine KZS-812. The use of a reduction jar box provides with the rotating frequency of the threshing cylinder in the range from 185 to 364 rotations per minute. This allows you to harvest not only maize for grain, but also other easily injured crops. When preparing the thresher of the combine KZS-812 for grain maize harvesting, adjust clearances between plates of the sieve gills and stretcher of the upper sieve of filtration unit. When adjusting, use the special key supplied in spare parts and accessories sets of the combine. Clearances are set depending on the specific harvesting conditions. For an additional sieve from 14 to 16 millimeters. For a lower sieve from 9 to 10 millimeters. For an upper sieve from 12 to 14 millimeters. Gills of stretcher of the upper sieve should be fully closed. When harvesting maize for grain, the rotating frequency of filtration unit ventilator of the combined KZS-1012 should be adjusted in a range from 700 to 850 rotations per minute, depending on grain humidity content. Header KZK-05-0000-01. The set KOK-6-3 includes header KZK-05-0000-01, designed for simultaneous harvesting of 6 rows of maize for grain. 6 snapping units are fastened on the header frame. Each snapping unit includes a pair of feeding chains with grippers, a pair of cobs separating rollers, 2 snappy plates, 2 rubber anti-skating plates, and a rotary cutting and grinding unit of the front type. The clearance between snappy plates in their middle part is set equal to about 5 millimeters less than the average diameter of the cobs in a harvested field. The size of clearance is adjusted by moving left snappy plate and carried out simultaneously on all snapping units using a special mechanism. The control lever of the mechanism is located on the lower beam group of the frame from the right side of the header. To adjust the clearance, unlock and unscrew the bolt that fixes the lever. Turn the lever to a position that provides the required clearance between the snappy plates. Fix the lever with a bolt. Lock the bolt with a nut. Turning the lever for one slot of the sector, you change the clearance by about 1 millimeter. The rotor of the cutting and grinding unit is located under the rollers of each snapping unit. 2 knives are fastened pivotally on the rotor. The cutting bits of the knives are hardened with high alloy material. The location of the rotor allows cutting maize stalks in almost any zone of their extension when pulled by rollers. Thanks to this, the stalks are ground into segments from 7 to 8 centimeters long. Thus, the stalks are harvested and ground simultaneously. This allows you to reduce significantly costs for harvesting, to reduce its time and the number of passes along the field. Preparing the transport trolley for the grain crops header ЗЛiNK-6-5 for transportation of the header KZK-05-0000-01. The maximum overall width of the header KZK-05-0000-01 is 4,590 millimeters, which exceeds the maximum overall size of 4,400 millimeters allowed for objects moving along the public roads. In this regard, if the combined KZS-10K needs to be moved along the public roads, the header should be transported on a converted transport trolley for the grain crops header ЗЛiNK-6-5. Before starting to re-equip the header, remove the grain crops header from the trolley, using the lifting equipment and install it on a flat horizontal platform, placing wooden bars under the front beam and rear pipe of the header frame, closer to the side wall of the header. It is allowed to remove the header from the trolley by unitizing the header with the inclined chamber of the combine. In this case, when disassembling the header from the inclined chamber, it must be installed on bearers that can ensure the position of the header that it can get after installing on the trolley. Disassemble further both supporting side rails of the trolley bearing beam. The machine servicer shows the front and the back side rails with a pointer. To do this, unlock and remove the nuts from the clamps, securing the side rails to the beam. Then install two lodgements on the trolley bearing beam. The lodgements, together with their components designed for fastening on the beam, are located in packing place number 5. The back lodgement is installed at a distance of 1,200 millimeters from the axle of the rear wheels. The distance between lodgements should be 3,520 millimeters. The lodgements are fastened on the beam with clamps and nuts. At the same time, use nuts previously dismantled from the clamps which fastened the lodgements. After tightening, the nuts are locked from self-unscrewing by bending close of locking washers. The final action of the trolley re-equipment should be attaching of the beam to the lodgements. The beam is supplied as the packing place number 6. The beam is fastened on each lodgement with 2 bolted joints. Install cat's eyes installing the header on the trolley and removing the header from the trolley. Before installing the header on the trolley, do the following actions. Disassemble the right and the left cardan shafts of the header drive from the adapter drive shaft and lay their free ends in special hangers located on the header frame. Dismantle upper and lower grip hooks of the header from the inclined chamber components. Then raise the header as high as possible, fully extending the plungers of the inclined chamber lift hydraulic cylinders. Drive the combine to the trolley and install the header on the trolley. At the same time, the lower beam of the header frame should be located in the recesses of the lodgements, and the drags of the snapping units should be lean against the beam fixed on the lodgements. Fasten the header on the trolley using 2 retaining pins. The retaining pins are inserted into the openings of the drags of the utmost snapping units and fastened with quick-release cotter pins. Then fasten the header on the trolley using 2 grip hooks removed from the previously dismantled lodgements. Finally, attach the drawbar of the trolley to the towing unit of the combine. Unitizing of the header installed on the trolley with the combine should be made in the reverse order. Disassembly of set KOK-6-3 components. After the end of the harvesting season, the set KOK-6-3 components are dismantled from the combine in the reverse order. Dismantle the beam and lodgements from the transport trolley and install side rails again. The dismantled set components are stored in accordance with the set KOK-6-3 operations manual. Operation of the combine KZS-1012 in a unit with the set KOK-6-3 for grain maize harvesting. A properly prepared combine KZS-812 in the unit with the set KOK-6-3 can be used for harvesting maize for grain of almost any yield with a consistently high quality of operation. When working with the header, the recommended operating speed should be from 6 to 7 km per hour. However, depending on the specific harvesting conditions, the combine's operating speed can reach 10 km per hour, and the combine's productivity can be at least 12 tons per hour.